You know, a lot of people have entertained the idea that we live in a simulation. And the reason is some things are just too far-fetched to believe. How about this story? Antonio Sabato Jr. tweeted, Netflix recently released a film called White Noise in 2022 about a train derailment of toxic chemicals causing a massive explosion and deadly event in East Palestine, Ohio. All right. Well, let me correct the record. My understanding is the movie is about a train derailment explosion and toxic chemical spill in Ohio in general. And I don't believe they ever actually say the city. Not that I think it really matters. I mean, it kind of does. If we're to believe that just last year Netflix released a movie about what literally is happening right now, I mean, that's pretty crazy, but they kind of did. I don't know if you need the very specific East Palestine, Ohio, to make this a reality. The fact is, it is very weird. The movie White Noise stars Adam Driver. Everybody's been talking about it. And the movie isn't completely about this toxic chemical event. It is sort of. And many people point out it's like a blip in the movie that sets the plot or whatever, and then it's a wacky, absurdist comedy with this weirdo family. But people are still pointing out, it's kind of weird, isn't it? It's kind of weird. So you can go on to believe that we live in a simulation, or you can be a conspiracy theorist. And as I'm reading through the news, I'll just tell you this. Look, man, I don't know. I try not to know. And what I mean by that is I try not to be someone who asserts knowledge without fact, right? I try to know as much as I can in the literal sense. In the figurative sense, I try not to be someone who says, I know when I don't. All I can really say is, oh boy, are you ready for this one? So I see this post over at patriots.win. Shout out to our good friends over at patriots.win. And they have this post they've highlighted from Patriot Mando. What are the odds the CDC waits 17 years to update its toxicological profile for vinyl chloride a couple weeks before the Ohio derailment? I said, what? There's no way that's true. I mean, you know, the internet is full of conspiracy theorists and liars and deceivers, and they're trying to trick me. Otherwise, how could you have a movie about a train derailment and chemical spill in Ohio with a massive explosion, the toxic chemical event, and the CDC just so happening to update its profile on vinyl chloride, which is the chemical they're burning off. And they did this in January 2023. Clearly, I'm a victim of fake news. Well, I went to the CDC, and I love this. I went to the toxicological profiles section of the cdc.gov, as you can see up top. And you can see under vinyl chloride, it says new. I love the exclamation point. New. And I'm like, okay, clearly they're saying new because of what just happened. They are updating the information now because of what just happened. So I pulled up the toxicological profile information, the complete profile, and no, they actually did draft a profile for public comment January 2023. So about 1 month before a vinyl chloride spill, explosion, burn off, which produces hydrogen chloride, which bonds with water, creating acid rain, they did update for the first time in 17 years. Now, nothing but pure coincidence, right? Man, I don't know about nothing. I don't know about any of this. Because then I looked over at this post. This is a weird segment. I don't care. I went over to the post, and it said, what are the odds that after 17 years, the CDC just so happens to update the toxicological profile for vinyl chloride weeks before the Ohio derailment? Okay, let's slow down. I mean, they update lots of profiles for lots of things. Now, when you go to their website and look at what they've updated, vinyl chloride's the only one with a big new brand slapped on it, with a profile update for draft for public comment from a month ago. But I don't know, you know, these things happen. And the top comment says, about the same odds that all of these countries pulled their ambassadors out of Turkey 24 hours before the earthquakes there. Say, what? Yeah, what is this? Well, that has nothing to do with what's going on with a train derailment. So I pull up this tweet from David Wolf. We're going down the rabbit hole today, baby. List of countries that pulled their ambassadors out of Turkey 24 hours before the earthquake. Canada, USA, Britain, Germany, Belgium, Italy, Holland, France. Nothing suspicious here. Black conspiracy reality. Now, hold on there, Mr. Wolf. I don't believe you. At this point, I'm ready to believe anything, to be completely honest. But so I see this post from this guy, and let's see, he's a guy. He's a gorilla meme, raw fare, medical freedom, follows me on Twitter. All right, David Wolf. Well, I pulled up this story from Al Jazeera. Turkey, no evidence from Western nations after consulate closures. Now, many of you are probably aware there was a massive, devastating earthquake, I think several of them, just north of Syria, I believe south of Gaziantep, so just right between, like right at the border, basically. A very, very brutal earthquake. And what is the conspiracy, that we had advanced warning an earthquake was going to happen, or that Western powers caused it? Well, I find this article. The FM says the West may be trying to portray Turkey as a volatile country after 9 countries closed down their consulates in Istanbul or issued travel warnings to citizens. Wait. On February 3rd, Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu on Friday suggested the countries may have been trying to portray Turkey as a volatile state when they temporarily shut embassies and consulates and issued travel warnings following Quran burnings in Europe. Okay. So this is not 24 hours before the earthquake. This was presumably a week or 5 days. So I pulled it up. The 2023 Turkey-Syria earthquake. On February 6th, 2023, a catastrophic and destructive 7.8 earthquake struck southern and central Turkey. All right, let's slow down. What are we doing this morning? Well, as you know, we got the Biden administration coming out saying the air is safe to breathe. And I don't believe them. I don't trust the government. I see these posts about this movie that comes out, White Noise, depicting this. And then, of course, there's the movie Utopia. I wonder if people have responded to him with the scene from Utopia on Twitter. I don't know. There's Idiocracy. I think someone mentioned to Antonio Sabato Jr. Utopia. I got to say, I don't know about any conspiracies. I don't know about Turkey and the earthquake and stuff like that. I can tell you coincidences do happen. And sometimes people will see a coincidence and then assume there must be a plot behind it because the probability seems like a long shot. Yeah, easy to believe. I mean, you get a guy who wins the lottery and it turns out, his brother's best friend's roommate, is the son of like the lottery commissioner or something. You get someone with a connection and you're like, what are the odds of that? What are the odds of that happening? I mean, people win the lottery. They do. And that's a lot of coincidences to occur, but it does happen. So I try to be careful with this stuff, right? First, I'll point out this. The movie doesn't take place in East Palestine, Ohio. All right. At least as far as I can tell, it just takes place in Ohio, which I suppose is like close enough. But when you look at all of this stuff, it really does paint a picture like something else is going on. And when you take a look at what's going on with chickens being culled, with fuel lines being disrupted, I think in Los Angeles to Nevada, there's like a fuel line that was disrupted. When you take a look at the internet outages, yeah, I got to tell you, my friends, maybe we're just at war and this is modern warfare. Or maybe we're in the destabilization period of the world. Maybe the demoralization that Yuri Bezmenov talked to us about wasn't just about the United States. Maybe it was about the whole world. I mean, that was the communist Soviet plan, right? And it's not like they ceased to exist. I mean, they kind of did, but these people still exist. Vladimir Putin very much still exists. Does this man's ideology and goals disappear simply because the name of his country changed? Yeah, I certainly don't think so. But I do think all of this kind of just gets a little too weird for me. It's hard to know what's true and what's not true. Here's what I can tell you, man. We got this tweet from Patrick Morrissey. I believe he's the AG of West Virginia Attorney General. He says, I'm anxious to learn about more about this, so West Virginia takes every step necessary to protect our citizens' drinking water. Breaking. Toxic chemicals from the train derailment and explosion in East Palestine have reportedly contaminated the Ohio River as far west as Virginia, a water source for over 5 million. Yeah, it is all just very strange, I guess. They chose to detonate and burn off this chemical because they were scared of an explosion. All right, here's some thoughts. No, legitimate questions. I am not a, toxic chemical hazmat specialist, so I don't know for sure. They said the concern was there was a potential for the chemicals to boil, creating pressure and exploding and then spraying shrapnel everywhere and stuff like that. So they said, let's burn it off and contaminate everything. Couldn't you just, I don't know, release pressure? Like, isn't there something that could be done that could release the pressure? How did they get the chemical out to burn it off? I'm not suggesting they didn't. I'm just, it's a legitimate question. How did they get the chemical out to burn in the first place without blowing it up? Because if the concern was pressurization and explosion, why is burning the appropriate response instead of just draining it out or capturing it in another device? I'm sure there's answers for this. I mean, I don't know, maybe. I don't really trust these people or the government. I think the whole thing sounds very, very weird, to be completely honest. You know, do you guys know what Utopia is? Utopia was a show from the, I think it was a book or something. It was a show in the UK. They adapted it, and it was published by, I think, Amazon a couple of years ago. Utopia is about a tech billionaire who is concerned about overpopulation. So he stages a fake pandemic in order to rush through a vaccine that's not been tested and convince people they need it to prevent this pandemic. The vaccine actually just sterilizes them. In the movie, there is a comic book called Utopia. The comic book contains clues as to what these people are really up to. I find the whole thing just, I don't know, oh so weird. Don't you think? That in this show, did I say movie? In this show, there's a comic book, a fictional work of art that depicts what their plan is with a tech billionaire, fake meat company, depopulation agenda, sterilization, fake pandemic. In our world, we just have a real pandemic and a real vaccine being pushed through and a TV show showing a tech billionaire doing these things, but that's all coincidence. And I mean it, I guess, because I'm just getting tired of all this. When you gaze at this for too long, it starts to just kind of break your brain. How could it be that all of these countries, within a few days of a massive earthquake, pull out their ambassadors and shut down their consulates, citing some security issue because people were burning the Quran or something? And I think it was like the Quran burning wasn't even in Turkey. I don't even know. What are the chances? What are the chances they'd make a movie basically about this? Well, it was about a book. Let's talk about the book. What was it called? Futility, where a large cruise ship called the Titan hits an iceberg and then sinks. Yeah, let's talk about that other book from Ingersoll Lockwood. Is that what the guy's name? All right, this one's a hoot. A book written in the 1800s about Baron Trump. And in the third book, Baron Trump tries to become president, and a bunch of communists and socialists from the Lower East Side of Manhattan make their way up to Baron Trump's fortress on Fifth Avenue in New York. Yeah, sound familiar? Maybe time is cyclical. Maybe we live in a simulation. Maybe we live in some kind of strange dream. Or maybe if you gaze too long, you will look for the anomalies because that's what people do. I mean, I think that's a fair point to assess what all of this is. When you see these weird coincidences, and you see it happen a whole lot, you might then say this proves that there is a conspiracy or a cabal, and it's like, no, honestly, it proves that you look for it. I mean, no, look, don't get me wrong. I mean, there very well may be conspiracies like this. It may be the case. It could be intentional. There's no evidence to suggest it is or isn't or whatever. I mean, actually, I should say the evidence suggests it was an accidental derailment for sure. But the way I'll put it is this. If you were to throw a whole bunch of, coins in the air or whatever, let's say you threw 1 million coins in the air and they're all flipping around and they all land and then stop. And then you look and notice in one area, all heads. Well, you see that and say, how is that possible? Well, it is. You're ignoring the fact that the overwhelming majority of every single thing you're looking at with all these coins is normal, but because there was one anomalous distribution, which does fall within the confines of the bell curve, you're saying it can't be true. Well, it can be. Simply put, we get one story out of millions of stories related to international conflict with Turkey. And we say, whoa, they pulled their ambassadors out and then an earthquake happened. And the insinuation from a lot of people is that they made the earthquake happen. And I'm like, or it could be that every other time they pull out an ambassador, nothing happens, so you ignore it and you don't care. But again, I'm not saying there's no conspiracy. I'm just saying be careful you're not just hyper-focused on the anomalous. Because that's what may be happening. And, there are a lot of people that want to believe that the universe is being controlled or whatever. And I got to say that some of these things just feel a little bit beyond coincidence. I mean, look, a movie was made about a toxic chemical spill. A book was written about the Titan hitting an iceberg. A TV show was published about a tech billionaire. I mean, these things just feel like they're a little bit beyond coincidence, don't they? Maybe that's it. Maybe that's just it, though. Maybe they're literally the anomalies. I mean, we don't care about any other movie that just came out. I mean, look, they made, what did they make? The Northman or whatever. Nobody then came out and said, and there was a story about a guy, a Viking dude living in a forest. Well, nobody says that. They make Iron Man. Nobody comes out and goes, what a coincidence. They make an Iron Man movie and then some guy just happens to be working on an Iron Man suit to allow him to fly around. True story. The jet suit they've got. Well, no one cares about that. That's not shocking. But you make a movie about a chemical spill in Ohio, and then, half a year later, there's a chemical spill, and everyone says, aha, that proves it. And it's like, no, I mean, it just shows that they made a movie about a book a long time ago, and sometimes chemical spills happen. I mean, don't get me wrong. This is like the worst chemical spill in the history of the United States. Then they burned off the chemical and put all the hydrogen chloride into the air, so we're going to get acid rain and water contamination. West Virginia is concerned. We're all concerned. And this is going to affect the drinking water in the immediate area of 5 million people. But the Ohio River Basin feeds into the Mississippi River, and it's going to affect everyone down to the Gulf and probably the Gulf. And don't forget, it's also going to have a very severe impact on all the farmland. So, interesting, huh? What more can be said? The whole thing just seems so odd and out of place. That the CDC would update their toxicological profile for vinyl chloride in January of 2023. Then a train carrying it would explode in a burst into flames, and then they would set it on fire to burn it off. And it happens just after a movie comes out about such a thing happening. Maybe all of these things together get a little bit beyond the idea of a coincidence. I'd love to believe in a conspiracy. I really would. Because it makes it seem like these terrifying events can be controlled. But I tell you this, you look at a lottery ticket and the astronomical odds, and they happen. Someone just won like 900 million or some ridiculous amount. Somebody, we had that multi-billion-dollar lottery draw last year. People do win the lottery. They do. And that's a heck of a coincidence for all those numbers to come up in the same way at the same time, so much so that some people want to believe that's probably rigged. No, but you really can be that 1 in 300 million who gets the numbers right. I mean, I'll tell you this. We went to, I love talking about going to the casino, hanging out. It's fun times. We were leaving and we had $10 left. So we walked over and we put it on 26. It's our magic number. 26 hit. $10 became $360 because you win 35 times plus your original bet. So we let the $10 ride, we lose it, but now we turn $10 into $350. Holy crap. Walked over to the craps table and just said, hey man, look, this is a $10 bet as far as I'm concerned. Put it on the pass line. The guy rolls, point was off, rolls one time, 7, doubled the money. And just like that, what are the odds? I mean, do the math. It's crazy. To turn $10 into $700, just like that. Well, it's 1 in 37 on the roulette table, and then it's like 1 in 48 on the pass line. But then you got to make that whole circumstance. What are the odds of all that coming up in your favor? And it's actually a bit crazier than that, but not the craziest. But it happened. And that was something simple. That wasn't winning $1 billion. I think we got to be careful about looking at stories like this because I'll stress this point. When Antonio Sabato Jr. tweeted this out, about a massive explosion and deadly event in East Palestine, Ohio, that made me say, no freaking way. And I looked it up and found out it's not about East Palestine. The movie just takes place generally in Ohio. But hey, fair point, Ohio is close enough. Maybe the world is, I don't know exactly what you'd think. You can find events that should not align and that make you think or make you want to investigate, fair point. But to assume you know the answers simply because two things happened that seem like they're astronomical odds, it doesn't mean there's a conspiracy. So for the Turkey thing, for instance, yeah, it may just be that a week before an earthquake, we pulled our ambassadors out. We probably pulled our ambassadors out of a lot of countries for a lot of reasons. We never talk about it because nothing ever happens. But this one time is right before an earthquake, and they say, aha, they knew. And it's like, dude, that may be an indication that there's something worth investigating, but it's not proof anybody knew anything. But I'll tell you what, it won't stop people from believing anyway. So I got a bunch of stuff to talk about today, you know, aligned in this way. I want to talk to you about Yuri Bezmenov and the destabilization period, because that's what people were talking about on Timcast IRL last night, that we're entering the destabilization period of demoralization. Demoralization, to remove the morals of a nation. Then, once there are no morals and people can't figure out what's true or what matters, you destabilize, then you destroy. It seems like that's where we're going. So, hey, I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.